we're going to talk a little bit about nonprofits and a specific kind of software that we're finding a lot of clients are getting a lot of benefit from, which is called financial planning and analysis. I cringe a little bit because it's also called enterprise performance management as well as corporate performance management. And this is, of course, during the times of coronavirus, where we have dogs and we have coronavirus. Actually, I'm getting over it. But anyway, so I'll try my best not to sound like a frog here, too. So what is FP&A software for nonprofits? So nonprofits have this unusual situation where cash is in the funding of programs, whether it be health and human services, could even be an association. Lots of different types of nonprofits out there. It could be a foundation, but they do need to know where their money is going and what it's being used for. Who doesn't need that, right? But particularly with nonprofits, not just the ability to know where the actuals are going, right? That's an accounting system helps, but also what's budgeted in terms of what expenditures do they expect for the year, but then also what's happening into the future. And that's basically what FP&A software helps with: financial planning and analysis. Where did our money go today? Where did we expect it to go? And then into the future, what do we need to happen? What should we plan with? So, there's lots of applications in the market that do this, although we see some of the most prevalent vendors being Adaptive Insights, which is owned by Workday now. There's other applications like Board International or Profix, maybe a little bit more on the lower end, whereas Adaptive's on the higher end. We see applications that are specific to products, like in the Microsoft space, we see Solver, used to be called BI 360 quite a bit. And Oracle has a smaller planning and budgeting cloud service product. It's called PBCS. And there's several others out there, like Planful is another one, used to be called Host Analytics. So there's 5 or 6 different apps. So that's basically what those products are used for. And the ultimate why to use these applications is to get out of Excel. Every organization has a plan. They have a budget. They know where, if it's a $20 million budget for the enterprise or for the organization, or 200 million for that matter, they have to know where that money is going to go, and that has to be agreed to. It has to be reviewed by the board, and then the plan is implemented. So that is being communicated today through Excel for sure. Like, we have departmental budgets. And the problem with that budget that's in Excel is it breaks. The formulas get broken or not able to share data in a way that makes it more pervasive for lots of other people to see, because it's in an Excel document. But then also the information's in Excel and it's not in a system. Somebody has to manually put the budget into their accounting system so they can do budget versus actual reporting, because that's really what it's about, is why is there a variance? As well, the plan, the forecast is in Excel, and especially nowadays with all the crazy things happening, even in my little world, but definitely more macroeconomics based, with scenarios are changing constantly. So we were on a demo the other day with the vendor Adaptive, and they said that their scenario planning, that they've seen a 30x increase in the amount of scenarios across their customer base. That's 30 times more, right? Like not 100%. We're talking 30x more use of scenario planning, because everybody has had to look at, well, what happens if the economy opens? What happens if it closes? What happens if our constituents aren't able to fund the agreements? What happens if our bilateral agreements with government agencies don't come through because the government agencies are being impacted? People need to look at those plans and say, what do we do? Right? Well, build out a scenario in your forecast and do that. So that's a big driver for that kind of software right now. Sorry. Giving you a few examples of applications that are out in the market. and they're not necessarily like doing a huge project implementation, frankly. They're pretty doable. In a couple months, 3 months, with just a few people involved from your team, you can get into one of these products pretty quickly, and then it's set up for you. So, a good time to do it is before your next budgeting cycle, so you can do your budget more automated. But certainly, as you're looking at kind of forecasting for the future and you want to put your new plans out, having the system in place makes a lot of sense for that. Pricing wise, it's sort of like a lower to medium investment, I would say. Pricing can, of course, it depends on each vendor, but it's usually based off the types of users. So there's model builders, then there's like people who enter budgets and kind of interact. So, 20,000 plus or minus, 10,000. If you have a lot of users, it's going to be a lot higher than that. But, a deal that is, maybe 5 users, 5 like really heavy users, meaning building models and putting together different scenarios, and that's actually a lot of people too. But that may be, up to 5, let's say. And then if we look at users that are more like adding information and providing, their thoughts on what the budgets should be and that kind of thing. So, maybe we have, I don't know, let's say 10, maybe 20 different people that are interacting with the budgets and that. So, I mean, that's probably a pretty good, up to 5, maybe power users, let's say, and then maybe 20 users that are actually putting in, their data. I think like a pretty good estimate would be, like I said, maybe 20, maybe 30,000. Most of these vendors will do nonprofit discounts too, so keep that in mind. That's an annual cost. And then the implementation is usually separate from that. And that's usually done kind of on an hourly basis, and the hours kind of vary from there, but it's probably about the same as the annual cost. So if you're spending 20 to 30,000 on the software, it's probably 20 to 30,000 on the services. And that's sort of a lower end with not that many users, like we said. But why would you spend $40,000, maybe even 50,000 as a nonprofit to do this when the spreadsheets are okay? Well, it is a little bit of a luxury, but what we see is that the financial decisions that these organizations are making are becoming so much more complex, especially if you look at the way grants are funded, especially if we start looking at kind of the multi-year kind of nature of giving. And we want to be able to look at all that fully. That's where an application like this makes sense. But that's pretty good, I think, information for you at this point.